Today we're going to continue with our Pliers series, and this week we're going to take a look at the Capri 10-inch. There is a 7-inch here, but we're only going to take a look at the 10-inch this week. Set of Pliers wrenches. Now these come in a fancy foamy hard type case that I guess is meant for a toolbox insert, which isn't bad, but they are rather space consuming. But if you are into the organizational thing, not bad. Now these say they're self-adjusting, so they might work like something similar to the door that we looked at the other week. We'll find out. And they are made in Taiwan, if you're keeping track. Okay, so first impressions, taking a look at these. These do seem to be a little bit more down market from what we have looked at in the past. They are going for that matte chrome look that a bunch of the German tools have. And they're getting it, but it doesn't quite have the pop, that shall we say, that the German tools have. And there's a few signs that, like, the push button seems a little less refined. The mechanism is a little bit more, the spring is, the handles, they're pretty nice for surface area, and I'm expecting these will give this pair of pliers an advantage on the compression test when we get to it, and it'll also give my hands an advantage when I go for that 100 pounds or foot-pounds test. But you do have a little bit of flashing showing here and there, so the finish isn't quite the quality we saw on some of the other tools. Though it's not bad, but it does seem to be a little bit lower quality than some of the others that we've seen. Now, looking at the jaws, I don't know if you can make that out. They don't line up. They're a little bit side to side, and I can make them straight, but you know how this goes when you go to use the pliers. They're going to go back to where they want to go back to. So that's something that is the fit and finish of the tool. Maybe these will, they don't have a lot of slack or slop in them this way, but they don't seem to have that super fine. Now that time they closed well. Now we're back to offset a little bit. So they're not closing perfectly, which we've actually seen pretty good fitment up till now as well. So let's keep going though and see how big our jaws are. That actually operated a little stiff, but it is a new tool, so I won't be too critical on that. You do have to get the push button way down in there, so I do like that. That push button has to get pushed way down in order to move the pliers. So that's a plus. I do like that. Let's see what we got here as far as dimensions. We have, I'll call that 5/16 on the lower jaw, and we have, I'll go with 5/16 on the upper. And our overall jaw depth, let's call it 1.25 inches. Yeah, 1.25 inches. Full open, that's our spot. We have 1.75 inches and 1 5/16 inches. Okay, so 1 15/16 inches is not 2 inches, which a lot of these advertise. And that 1 15/16 inches is way out here. You wouldn't want to use this pliers with it set up like that. So keep that in mind. This isn't the first pair that's been that way. Now, as far as how hard are these, that is something that we like to look at when we look at these is how hard are the jaws. That can help you out if you're working with hardened bolts or something like that. You don't want to have too soft of a jaw because you'll mar up your pliers when you're working with fasteners. So a lot of these hang around the 50 to 55 range. So let's take a look here at our fixed jaw, and we are cutting in. I don't know if you can hear it with the 55. So let's hit our movable jaw, and we're cutting in with that as well. Let's see if the 50 skates. The 50 is just barely skating on the fixed jaw. Movable jaw, it's easily skating. So I would say these are at the lower end of the 50 to 55, but they will get the 50 to 55 marking on our spreadsheet. So these are among the softer of what we've seen. I think the icons were very similar. They were on the lower end as well. Okay, so another good question that we like to answer is how much weight could you expect to carry around if you got yourself a pair of these? They have the extra handles, and we know that adds a little bit of weight. So let's see what we get. We get 19.4 ounces, which is among the heavier of them. I think we had the icons and the SK were kind of around those weights. So this is among the heavier of what we've tested so far. Okay, so we are over at the vise with the torque wrench and our Capri pliers. So let's go and see if we can get to 100 foot-pounds with this pair of pliers, or if they're going to want to open up on us. Okay, we got to 109 foot-pounds. That extra handle does indeed make that easier to do. Okay, so we're back from the vise, and I got to say, these did not seem to want to open up on me. I mean, 100 foot-pounds out of a pair of pliers is something else, in my opinion, having been around various pump pliers over the years. To have something like this that you can get that much force out of is pretty amazing. So let's get under our microscope here and take a look at our movable jaw first, and we could see on the movable jaw there's not really a whole lot of noticeable marking. Now that is slightly polished, and polished is probably not the best term, but it's smoother than the rest of the tool's surface. You can kind of see it there, but I cannot feel that. So that's not bad at all. Now, our movable jaw, or a fixed jaw, and historically our fixed jaw is always just a little softer than the movable jaw. We don't really have a whole lot of marring, or anything like that visible from the side. Take a look at the other side, and you really can't make out where we were torquing on that. And you see the profile here, you can see right where it was, and we get this way, now we can see it. It's got a defined line, but honestly I can feel it a little bit. It's not as bad as we've seen on some of the others. So that actually held up pretty good, which is nice. Now you can see some relics of manufacturing here. These aren't finished quite as nicely as some of the other tools that we've seen. Does that really hurt anything? I would say not, but it's just a interesting observation to take a look at. Now the rest of the pliers, here's your 50 mil to 2 inch marking, that's stamped in there. Here's that spring that I was talking about. It's got this burr on it here. It's just not quite as finished as some of the others. And that's not bad, you can't catch it or anything like that, but you can just kind of see that the finish isn't quite the same. Other side of it, here's your button. The Capri is laser etched. I guess I should put that the other way. The Capri is laser etched into the tool, and you can see that's going to wear off over time. Not really a big deal. They don't have inch markings or anything like that on here to say how far you've opened, and that's okay. That's all kind of, you don't need any of that to have a functional pair of pliers. Here's your handle. You can see it's got kind of a nice rubberized handle. The blue is a little bit less grabby, the black is all kind of rubberized. That seems to be inset into these. You can kind of see that a little bit there. As far as how well these are set onto the pliers themselves, I do not have an answer for that. We'll have to see. That's something that if somebody could leave a comment below, that would be really nice. I can see there's quite a gap around these handles. I don't know if I can show that well with the microscope. We might have to take a look on the other camera. There's quite some gapping there. If we take a look, you can see there's some gaps around those. So they're not really molded perfectly for these pliers. Is that a big deal? I don't really think so. But if you're in a dirty environment, you could really collect some dirt inside of these pliers. So that's kind of interesting. I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker or anything, but just an observation. Okay, let's head over to the load cell vise and see what these things can do. Okay, welcome over to the load cell vise, and like we always start, we'll put the load cell out towards the tip of the pliers. Now these I might have to open up a bit because I'm noticing that I can squeeze them all the way. Now I don't like it when we have to do this because the more you open these, the more leverage you get out of them. So I'm not overly convinced this is going to be apples and apples comparisons as we get open further on the vise. So let's go to 5. Yeah, we're already going to be higher. So 5 is about 50. We could go with that. And let's see what we are open. We are open 3 3/4. And let's go all the way to 75. Yeah, this isn't going to be. So that's 580 and about 2 3/4. So let's just try it with it closed more and see what we get, because I don't like it when I have them open that far. Now I can make that bottom out with my hand, so I don't think that's going to work. So going back open again. Okay, so now when we go back in the pliers, this should be a little bit more of a good representation of what these do, because what you end up doing when you have them open is you change the lever point, and it's open further than you could actually practically use anyway. So alright, let's go to 5. Okay, so 5 is going to be about 46, and 2 and 5/16. And now let's go to 75. These are still going. Oh, overshot there, staring at the other one. So we're right at 500 with the 75, and we are 1 3/4. So we kind of have a little bit of a difference here. We're a little skewed because our first test with the pliers handles way open didn't really go as planned. We could redo this test here, and we're just going to see 5. 5 is about 50-ish. We're doing horseshoes and hand grenades here quick. 2 and 3/16. And I'm just going to crank this until the scale stops on the load cell. We're right about there at 188. So that we only got to about 40. The pliers is stretched as much as it can stretch, so we can get about 189 out of that, 190, and that's really all you're going to get at that position. If I go to 75, I don't know what happens. It's going to climb quick here. Okay, so we're 75-ish. We did get to 200, and we are 1 3/4. So that is about what you'll get. We didn't gain a whole lot out of this load cell. You can see I can just squeeze it here and get more out of it. We didn't get a whole lot out of it because the tool is bottomed out. So that's tool's maxed out and what it can do. Okay, so I think I gotta be fair, and I will just include the one setting, because all of the other pliers we went with a single setting. I didn't open them up real far to get a bite. We're gonna go with what you can get out of these on a comfortable setting. If the pliers doesn't have a setting that gets us on our load cell decent, we're just gonna record what it has. We got to draw a line somewhere, and we're just having fun here. So that's what we're going to come up with. So this is performed a little lackluster, but that's okay. It actually did get fairly high on the higher range. It wasn't the lowest in them. So it's not too bad, but we have seen better. These handles, I think, helped it. This tool does have a fair amount of flex in it from what I've seen. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you're gonna have more travel to get that force that you're looking for. We did see that we got a little bit more out of it, even though we kept squeezing with the vise to get to 75, which was kind of interesting. The load cell kind of stopped going, and then we just decided to send it, and we got a little bit more, about 10 kilograms out of it beyond, but that was a lot of force applied. So interesting results. For the money, this Capri costs the same or a little bit more than the Knipex. So I don't think I would go to the Capri. if you could get a deal on it, the retail for it would, just a quick look, was $60. I don't know that I'd buy this pair of pliers for $60 when you could buy this pair of pliers for $60. This is far superior in my opinion. The fit and finish actually lines up. There's no wobbly anything on that. That is perfect. That is set right where it needs to be, and it'll go back to that. You open them, you close them, they're right there. So this is a good pair of pliers. The machining on the Knipex is also better. I feel like every time I keep coming back to the Knipex, but so far for the money, this seems to be the better tool. These aren't bad. I don't want to seem like I'm ragging on them, but I would say these feel, I guess the phrase would be a little bit more clunky. They're not as smooth in the adjusting. They're just, yeah, I think I'd go with they're a little clunky. I wouldn't say they're junk. They obviously got some decent torque out of them and all of that, so I certainly wouldn't rag on them and say that these are a horrible pair of pliers. They will get the job done, and if you are into handles like this, aside from the SK, these might be the better ones as far as these overmolded handles. So if you do like those, that's a good selling point, but let me know in the comments below if you've had these knock loose on you. That's something that I'm always weary on with these. So let me know if you have these. Do you like them? Do you not like them? I like to know all those things, try and help out other people. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.